welcome to Dabbling in Journals and part 2 of my Let's Learn to Watercolour series. As I said last week, I'm not a professional artist, I'm learning to watercolour myself, and I thought it would be fun to video it so that if you'd like to join me and learn to watercolour too, we can do so together. So last week we had to go at colour mixing. I just used yellow, magenta and blue and mixed all of these different colours at a time. I thought I'd just start with 3, though I am going to add one more colour today. And I will explain today why it is important to learn how to mix colours. On this page, I was just having a play around, trying to decide what I wanted to do in this next episode. And what I finally decided was that it would be really fun to learn a technique, but then also do a mini painting so that we apply the technique. And what I thought I would paint is a banana, which is probably in the thumbnail, so you probably already knew that. But I'm going to paint a banana. So what I wanted to do first was learn the technique of simply applying wet paint to dry paper and trying to achieve a flat wash of colour. Now I've done one, here's one I did earlier, and the reason I've done it earlier is because I wanted it to be completely dry so that I could have a go at glazing different colours over this base colour of yellow. But one of the things that we need to learn is how to apply colour so that we can get a sort of even coating of the colour that we want. And even though we might not always want to use that in a painting, it will teach us brush control and paint control, which is important. So the first thing I'm going to do is just mix up some yellow paint. Now, one of the things that I discovered as I practiced doing this is that you need to mix up enough paint to colour the whole area that you want to colour, because if you try and mix up more, you're not going to get, even if you're just using one colour, I mean, if you're mixing colours, it's going to be really hard to get exactly the same colour. But even if you're just using one colour, it's going to be hard to get the same proportion of paint to water as the first sort of little pile that you mix. So as you can see, I'm mixing lots of yellow here because we're going to paint a banana, and I know I'm going to put it to good use. So I've mixed up quite wet, so it's going to be quite pale. Because remember, the more water you have in sort of proportion to the paint, the paler the colour. And I've got a size 10 brush, which is quite a big brush actually, but I just wanted to have a go with it. But you use whatever brush you've got. It's a round brush. And I'm just going to try and colour in my little square that I've drawn here using an even sort of coating of colour. I do find keeping to the lines, keeping to the edges quite tricky at the moment, so this is going to be a good thing to practice. Now you could draw yourself out any shapes you wanted and just have a go at colouring them in and seeing if you can get your wash of colour looking even. Now I've done that because I'm using a big brush. I had enough paint on my brush to do that whole square, and I've still got a little puddle here that I'm soaking up a bit. And I've done my whole square. And hopefully when that dries, that will look like a flat wash of colour. Now the next thing I wanted to demonstrate was what would happen if you just had a little bit of paint. Now I've got quite, maybe I'll use a smaller brush actually to show you this. So I'm just grabbing a smaller brush, this is a size 6. I've just got a little bit of paint here, and I'm going to start painting in my square with my little bit of paint. Wish I'd used a brighter colour now. I suppose I stuck to yellow because I knew I was going to paint a banana. Right, so I've painted a little bit and now I've run out of paint. I've got no paint left in this pile here. So if I was painting this watercolour, I'd need to mix a bit more paint, wouldn't I? Because I've just run out. And let's suppose that I do that and I make it a lot wetter this time by mistake. Let's see what happens now. And I really should have demonstrated this with a brighter colour, I think, but I think we'll still be able to see. Now, if I zoom in now, I'm hoping that you can see how the wetter paint is pushing the darker colour paint upwards and creating a sort of jaggedy bloom effect rather than this flat wash. Now I've kind of contrived that a bit, but if you do find yourself getting these little blooms, it will be because you have changed the consistency of the paint. It's got wetter or a bit drier or whatever. And obviously you could go over that and fix it, but I just thought it'd be worth mentioning that. Now the other thing I wanted to mention is that I've been doing squares here, and as these dry they're going to have hard edges, and sometimes you might want to fade out your paint. And if you want to fade out your paint, you need to get a clean brush which is been wiped off so it's damp but not wet, so that you can fade out your colour, hopefully without making a bloom, like so. So two things for us to practice: trying to make flat washes and trying to blend out to white at the edge of a colour in case we need to do that. So those are the two things that I'm going to practice this week. But again, where I've put the water, can you see the paint starting to bloom, and I'm not getting that really flat colour like I had there. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to have a go at before I start my banana is thinking about what happens if I put another layer, because that isn't very dark. What if I put other layers, or I want other colours on my banana? If I look at my banana, well, one, it's not that colour, and two, parts of it are green, there's bits of it that are brown, some bits are sort of brighter than other bits, and so on. So I want to practice layering different colours. So the first thing I'm going to do is try just layering. I don't need more water. I'm just going to layer, I'm sticking with my little brush to do this, a second coat of yellow on top of this coat of yellow. So suppose I wanted that yellow to be a bit brighter. So I'm just going to I'll put even more pigment now, a really bright colour of yellow over the top, and we'll see what that looks like when it dries. I'm not very good at doing straight edges. I'm going to have to practice that as well. Okay, so that's putting the same colour on top but another layer. Now of course when we're watercolouring, if we paint something and it's a bit too light, we can add another layer, but if we paint something and it's a bit too bright, not much we can do about it, because you can't take the paint. I mean, you can lift paint, but and we'll do that in a future video, but you couldn't lift like large sections of paint. So it's always a good idea to go lighter, and watercolour anyway always dries lighter than it looks when it's wet. And now what I'm going to do is try my other colours that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to take some of my pink, my magenta here, and I know I'm using a palette with lots of colours in it, but I'm just going to focus on 4 of those colours because I don't want to try and remember what all these different colours do all at once. So let's see what happens if we put pink over the top of yellow. And what do we think is going to happen? Is it going to look pink, or is it going to look orange? And that actually looks quite pink to me. I was expecting it to look orange. But let's see what it looks like when it's dry. So if we layer pink over our yellow, we don't get the same colour pink as you get without the yellow underneath. So although it hasn't gone orange, it's gone more like a sort of salmon colour. Can you see the difference? So that's why we need to know how to mix our colours, because we need to know what's going to happen if we put one colour over the top of another colour. What are we going to get? We're not going to get the sort of original colour, as it were. Well, now let's try blue. So I've done quite a kind of pale phthalo blue here. Let's see what we get. I'm expecting a kind of green hue. Okay, so there's our blue over the top of yellow. It's very relaxing doing these kind of practices. Just painting, and you're not trying to make anything special. Oh, I should have just put a little bit of that blue at the top so you can see the difference. So I've done quite a pale blue, but even so, can you see it's starting to get that greeny tinge now as it dries? So that's my pink and my blue. Just want to put a bit more of that blue. So I think when that dries, oh no, I put the yellow in it. That's another thing that happens with watercolour. If you don't wait for things to dry, then you get bleed out. So as I said, it's not always that easy to do watercolour. Let's put some more blue up here because that's gone green now. And the last colour that I was going to use, so I've got my 3 colours. I've got my yellow on yellow, pink on yellow, blue on yellow, and I'm going to use a burnt umber, which is a warm brown, and I'm going to see what happens when I put brown over the top. And this process, I don't know if I mentioned, I believe it's called glazing, when you do a sort of watery layer of one colour over the top of another colour. I've done that brown quite strong, haven't I? So that's the kind of main techniques that I wanted to focus on today, learning to do a flat wash and learning to glaze colours to see what happens. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to move my water out of the way, though I'll still be using it, obviously, for my brush. I want to draw a banana today, or I want to paint a banana today. Now, if I look at that yellow colour, that is not the same colour as my banana. Okay, now in this little palette here, I do actually have 3 yellows, and I just want to see whether or not any of them are the same colour as my banana. So that's the one I'm already using, my pure yellow. This is a warm yellow. Okay, that's a warm yellow, so it's got sort of orangey tinge to, oh, I just put my brush in my clean water. I'm always doing that. And then the other yellow I have on my palette is yellow ochre, which is a kind of, I love this colour actually, it's a kind of sort of browner yellow. So on my palette I've got 3 different yellows because I've got 20 colours in this palette, which is quite a lot of colours. Now, do any of them look the same colour as my banana? And I think you'll agree that the answer to that is no, which is why you don't necessarily need lots and lots of colours to do watercolour painting, because even if you've got lots, the chances are you're still going to have to mix to get realistic colours if that's what you're aiming for. So I've got lots of yellow. Now, how am I going to get it to the colour of this banana? Let's try adding a little bit of pink, tiny bit. Now I've got a warmer yellow. Okay, maybe a tiny bit more. And if I add too much, I can just add more yellow back. Is that more like my banana? What do you think? I think that's more like my banana. But I'm going to add just a titch. A titch, that's not a word, is it? A teeny spot, I think that will be too much. A tiny spot of the blue. And see what colour I get now. Now that looks to me, do you agree, more like the colour of the banana? So I mixed up plenty of yellow because it's basically a yellow, and then I've altered the hue just by adding a little bit of my pink and a little bit of my blue, and now I've got the colour that I am after for my banana. So that's cool. And the other colours that I can see on my banana are green. So let's mix up a little bit of green. Can you see the green there at the end of the banana? Well, I've already got a little bit of yellow here, so let me add a bit of my blue. Ooh, do you think that's too much blue? I don't think my banana is that green, is it? That's like grass green. So I'm going to add more yellow back in. And now, oops, oh no, it went in there. Did you see how clumsy I am? And I dropped a bit of green in there. Never mind. Hopefully it won't affect my colour too much. I don't think it has. Okay, so I've got a green, which is a bit lighter. Is that more like the colour of my banana? I'm getting there, I feel. I'm going to add a touch of pink, because remember I've put blue to make it green. Now I want a slightly browner green, so I need to add my pink, just a little bit. See what I keep knocking green paint, and that's too much. I've put too much pink. So let's go for a bit more yellow again. And a bit more blue. And let's see if that is the colour green of my banana. And I think it is. So I've got the colours I need, but of course if I layer the colours, they're going to change, aren't they? So I will keep my scrap and I'll wait and see what colours I think will be best for my banana. Oh, and the other thing that I need is brown. So I said I was going to use burnt umber, which is a warm brown. See, that's a nice warm brown. Now I'm going to draw my banana. And of course, what we need to remember is the more we practice, the better we'll get, hopefully. Practice makes perfect. I mean, the first time you try and ride a bike, you can't do it, can you? You fall off. But you don't give up. You just keep trying until you can do it. And it's the same with art, in my opinion. So I want to draw my banana, and the first thing I do before I draw something from life is look at it. Because you need to look at it in order to sort of really observe what you're seeing. So for example, I can see there's a little sort of brown end, then it goes upwards and upwards. This bit's not actually on the table here. So we've got a sort of curve, and then we've got that round shape here, and that sort of round shape, curvy line here. And then there's a point where it changes from being the top to the side. It's kind of gradual, but I can see it. It's kind of like around there that it goes from being that way to that way. Do you see what I mean? I don't know the technical terms. But because it's a 3D object, it's not a flat object. We don't want to just draw a curve. It's not going to look like a banana because it won't look three-dimensional. So we need to work out which is the top and which is the side. So those are the basic shapes. I can see again with the stalk here, there is a sort of oblong. It's not really an oblong. I don't know what you call these shapes. It's a four-sided shape, which curves, and then it's got a side here. So there's a top and there's a side. So we need to make sure we draw both the top and the side, and then this squiggly thing. Okay, so let's start drawing our banana, and I'm going to draw it quite dark so you can see it. But when you're doing this at home, you can just press lightly so that you can see it, but it doesn't show through your paint. So I've got this little sort of black bit here, and then it curves up and it curves down like so. And then it goes even higher and then sort of down a bit. Remember, we can erase pencil, just pressing lightly and trying to get the shape of the banana. And it doesn't have to be exact because bananas all come in different shapes and sizes, so it's going to look like a banana even if you don't draw it exactly the same shape. This part is going to be on my table down here, and then it sort of looks like quite a round shape here. Do we agree? Do you think I've done it long enough? I don't want it to be any longer, otherwise it's going to come off my page. And I said it doesn't have to be exact. Now here I'm just going to indicate where I think it changes from being the top of the banana to the side of the banana, and it sort of curves round. It will curve round in the same kind of shape as the outside lines because we're just doing a line sketch. And then we've got this sort of curved lines that make the stalk, and then it comes down in a right angle like so. So that looks three-dimensional now because we've got the top and we've got the side, and it looks like it sort of ends like this. So you just really keep looking and looking. Get your own banana and copy your banana, and then it's got this like wiggly stalky bit at the top, and there's a dark bit in there. I hope you can see that. So I've done a very short banana. I should have turned my book round and I could have done a long banana, but I don't think it really matters for the purpose of demonstrating this. Does it matter that it's a bit of a a squat banana. And then the next thing I would do is I would take a putty eraser and I would try and dab off some of the graphite, because the graphite is grey, and the grey of the graphite is going to mix with your paint, so you don't want too much of it there. So I've dabbed off as much graphite as I can, and I'm just going to initially colour in the yellow part of my banana. I'm still using, I was going to try my big brush, I forgot. I'm still using my little one. And this layer is just going to be sort of a light bit that shines through, sort of where the light is catching the banana. Because I don't think you need any white highlights on a banana. I can't see anything that bright. Do you agree? Have a look at your banana. Tell me if you can see white highlights. I don't think so. But I could be wrong. Now the thing with watercolour is you have to be so patient, because I really need that to dry if I'm going to glaze another colour over the top. Now what I'm going to do, because I'm videoing it and I want to speed up the process, is I'm going to use a heat gun to dry my paint. Or if you don't have one of these craft heat guns, you could use a hairdryer, or you can just be patient, go and make yourself a cup of coffee and wait for the first layer to dry. And notice that I was doing wet paint on dry paper. Next week I'm going to do wet paint on wet paper, and we'll look at the difference. I think that layer is dry, so now I'm going to go with my slightly dirty yellow colour that I made with the yellow and mixed in some pink and blue until it matched my banana, and I'm going to pop that just over the top edge and then the bottom edge, and I'm going to leave it slightly brighter in the middle. So I'm just leaving a sort of slight highlight. Okay, so my camera just fell off my tripod. That's a new one. I haven't had that as a disaster before. Okay, let's carry on. So where was I? I've lost my brush. Okay, I've lost my train of thought now. Here we go. I'm going to do that muddy colour again at the top, and then leave my slight highlight in the middle to give it that slightly more three-dimensional look. Okay, and of course if you're doing a bigger watercolour painting, what you would be doing, I guess, is working on one bit while one bit's drying, and then working on another bit while that bit's drying, and so on. But when we're only doing a little sketch like this, we want to glaze, which is what I'm doing, we need to wait for the layers to dry. I'm going to change to my greenier colour now, and I'm going to put the green in at the end of the banana, and I can see a little bit of that green down at the bottom of the banana. Now at the bottom part of my banana I'm going to have an edge, which is absolutely fine, but I'm not at all sure that I want an edge here, a sharp hard edge here. So what I've done is I've cleaned my brush, rubbed off as much water as possible on my rag, and I'm just going to soften that edge here. So the edge on the inside. I'm not going to worry about the bottom because there's going to be a dark shadow under there. And then the top of my banana here, it seems like it's got more of a brownie. Oh no, I can see a little bit green here. I can see a little bit of green here. Maybe around here. And I'm going to soften that edge. Maybe I should have softened this a little bit. Remember, when you soften an edge, you need the paintbrush to be drier. You need it to be drier than the paint that you've already put down, otherwise it blooms that way. That is actually looking a little bit too green to me, so I'm going to add some of my yellow again over the top. See if I can build up a bit more yellow to my banana. Oh, that's better. Although when it dries it might be paler, of course. So just making that just a little bit more yellow. Do you think that's more like my banana? Okay, so now I'm going to work with brown. So I'm going to mix up some of that burnt umber brown colour. Make sure my banana's still there for you. Now I want it quite dark, so I'm going to put quite a lot of pigment in my water. And then it's just, can you see, it's just the very edge of the banana here that's brown. It's jaggedy here, and then it kind of goes up and joins up with the banana. Okay, and the same down here. I'll just pull a little bit under there. And I might need to do another layer of that to make it darker, because it is quite a dark brown. I can also see a little bit of brown on the very top edge. Now, this is something to practice, isn't it? Trying to draw thin lines. So as well as practicing doing our flat washes, we might want to practice doing thin lines. And I'm just kind of blending that in with a damp brush. Again, making sure that it's not wetter than the brown paint I used. Okay, and I'm going to blend that in with a bit more yellow. Because at the end, I do want my banana to look yellow. Maybe a little bit more green on that end. Just let them blend together. Okay, add a little bit more green here. And a little bit more yellow at the bottom. So I'm building up lots of layers of colour to get the colour as deep as I want it. Because I'm being conservative. I didn't want to start off with it too dark, because then I couldn't have done anything about it. And I'm going to start putting in some of the... Actually, I'm going to go... change my mind. Because as I said, it's easier to go darker, but not easier to go lighter, is it? So let's put some of the lighter brown on first. So I can see a bit of brown here. I can see a bit under here. And a bit here. And I want to sort of blend that in, because it's quite light. Okay. I'm losing my yellow. I don't know if I'm going to be posting this. It might be a disaster. Okay. This banana's beginning to look a little overripe, isn't it? I think I've put too much brown. So I'm going to just add a little bit of bright yellow over the whole banana to try and brighten it up. There we go. And I think what I'm doing is creating mud, but never mind. It's because it looks the right colour when I put the paint on, and then it goes a different colour afterwards. But then that's what we thought would happen. I'm going to add a little bit more dark here, because it does look darker than in my painting. And I'm going to add a little bit of blue to my brown to make it even darker. And then I'm going to try and get the paint right on the tip of my brush, so that I can start putting some of the light little brown marks in. And again, they don't have to be in exactly the right place, do they? But we need to have some there. And then there's lots of dots here. So right with the tip of the brush. Oh yeah, that makes a really tiny dot look, which is what I'm seeing on the banana in a sort of random way. And some lines. And here I can see some lines. And while they dry, I am going to work on my stalk, which is a very sort of yellowy brown colour as well. Okay, and then the actual end of the stalk is that really dark brown again, isn't it? So I used the brown umber with a bit of blue to make my dark brown. So I've got a nice dark brown there, and then I want my lighter brown first. Okay, so I'm going to do that light part of the stalk. Underneath. And then when that's dry, I'll do a darker brown over the top. Now, do we need any more sort of brown bits on my banana? Some splodges of a darker brown. I can see some sort of splodges here. My funny little short banana. And a few bits here. Okay, now while I'm waiting for that to dry, I can work on the shadow, can't I? So if I take my banana, I'm going to put a light on to try and make the shadow more obvious for me. So to make grey, I'm going to take my brown and I'm going to take some blue. Oh, now I've got a nice grey colour. Put in a bit more water and I'm going to put my shadow, and I can see that my shadow goes right under here. I didn't test it on my paper, did I? It's kind of got a sharp edge there, which is the end of the banana, and then it goes up here, and then it's got that shape of that, whatever it is there. What do you call that? Stalk. Shape of the stalk there. Now I want my shadow to come out, fade out, so I'm getting my damp brush, clean damp brush, just to go along the edge. I left it too late. Maybe it's not damp enough. So just that part of the shadow I want to sort of soften. This not so much, doesn't matter quite so much. Can you see how the shadow is sort of fading out now? Okay, so I've dried that, and I'm going to put a bit more dark brown on my stalk. So it's definitely darker here, it's darker here, and there's a dark bit in there. And there's dark bits, like squiggly bits along the edges, and maybe even slightly darker. Maybe take some here, is like the darkest bit, and then I want my grey a bit darker here. And let's clean my brush a little bit and soften that, and hope that it kind of all blends together. Okay, now for the purpose of just learning, I am going to call that banana done. So it's a funny little squat banana. It's by no means perfect. In fact, I think I need a bit more, see, it's really hard to stop fiddling. I think I need a bit more colour on my stalk. I forgot about my stalk. And maybe a bit of the green. And a little bit of a brownier colour on this part of the stalk here. And a little dark bit where the stalk meets the banana. See, I could keep fiddling forever. I hope I've demonstrated how to start learning watercolour by practising wet paint on dry paper to see if you can make smooth areas of colour, practising blending out those parts of the colour that you want blended in with something else or to just blend into the paper, practice glazing with your colours to see how they come out. And can you see how that pink is not the same as that pink, and that blue is not the same as that blue? But you always seem to get the underneath colour slightly shining through, which changes the colour on the top, even though this was dry. and I colour mixed yellows to try and get a banana colour, and I've done my little sketch of a banana using just the pink, blue, yellow and brown, and trying to copy my banana that I have in front of me. So I hope you as you can see, I'm not a professional artist. I hope you found that interesting or useful in some way and enjoyed it as much as I did, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.